What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we have a lot to cover in this video, but first we have to go pick up the Maserati.
Yeah. So we've had the Maserati for about 3 or so months, and that's given Aubrey and I enough time to drive it, kind of get a good feel for it, and have a pretty solid opinion on what we actually think of it.
So that's exactly what we're going to be covering in this video. In this video, we're specifically going to be talking about some of the things that we hate about our Maserati Ghibli, not just from the perspective of like Turo and using it as a revenue stream, but also just from an owner's perspective and car enthusiasts who like to drive nice cars. Now, you may not believe it, but we do like to drive nice cars, despite the fact that HP drives a 96 Ranger and I drive a 97 4Runner. We do still like cars.
We do like cars.
So the Maserati just got returned back from a 4-day rental. So far, at least from the surface, it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. What do you think, HP?
Pretty clean for coming back on a rental for like a 4-day rental. Probably the cleanest I've seen it.
Now, as we're sitting here, I actually don't know what HP's 5 things that he hates about this car is. We intentionally did not tell each other what our thoughts are on this vehicle, but knowing HP, I know probably where he's heading. But I do think that whenever we're evaluating the Maserati specifically, I think that we have to look at it through 2 different lenses. And the first of those lenses is the lens of somebody who paid $29,500 for this car, because that's what we paid for it. This car may have a flashy name, it might have kind of a bit of a wow factor to it, but at the end of the day, it's pretty affordable at $29,500, and you have to be able to compare it to other cars in that same price range.
So the second lens we have to view this in is the car costing $80,000 back in 2015, and what are our thoughts of it whenever you keep that in mind? How does this car feel? Does it feel like an $80,000 car, or does it feel like something a lot less? So I'm really excited to make this video, and I'm gonna be completely honest. I'm not only a car person, I'm a bit of a car snob, specifically a bit of a car slob, specifically when it comes to cars that have a really high price tag, but I know that I can get a much cheaper car with, you know, about the same amount of amenities and luxuries for a lot cheaper. So this is gonna be a really fun topic for me to talk about, because I feel like I've been holding in my breath this entire time, and I really wanna bash this vehicle. Sick fanny pack time. So let's dive into exactly what I do not like about our Maserati Ghibli. And number one thing is going to be how long this vehicle is. It's a huge car, and you don't get that much space out of it. It's extremely long. You get all this space for the front all the way to the driver's side, and it's nice and roomy, and then you don't get hardly any room in the back seat, and it makes sitting back there very difficult, but you get a pretty decent sized trunk. I'm not saying you should sacrifice all your trunk room, but if you're gonna have a vehicle this long, find some space for all the people in a 4-door vehicle.
Now, it's funny because I didn't think that HP would use that as one of his 5, and that makes it the first one that one of his least favorite things is one of my favorite things about the car. I actually like how disproportionate the front is. I think it gives the car a really cool look, and I'm a big fan. It does get a little annoying because it doesn't fit in our garage properly, but I really like that aspect of the car.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that Aubrey doesn't take into account when you're talking about the length of a vehicle is how low it is and how long it is means that it bottoms out in like almost everything. There's a lot of speed bumps that this car cannot get over physically.
That is true. Our bump going into our garage is like, I don't know, like that.
It's not that
and
big.
It bottoms out on the bump going into our garage. So HP has a fair point. I have to see his side to it, even though it does make the car look cool, which is probably why Maserati did it.
Now, another big thing is the inside of this vehicle, and more in particular, the technology this vehicle comes with or doesn't really come with actually. Now, when you think of $80,000 Maserati, you think it comes with a lot of cool technology, but this car simply does not. Granted, it was in 2015, but like a lot of other reviewers would say about this car, it just doesn't come with a lot. I mean, yes, you get this cool Maserati touchscreen touch control, but Aubrey even noticed it when we bought this car. This is the same exact Dodge Chrysler Uconnect, the same system that was in her Jeep.
It's a little different.
It's a little different. I mean, the background and some of the buttons, but it's also the touch tones sound the same, and it's really things like blind spot monitors, not blind spot monitors in this car. The backup camera is a really bad resolution if you take a look at the screen right here, and that's a really big thing. I mean, look at, you're just staring at the ground. You can't even see what's behind you, so much is just underneath you. So technology is a really big thing. What do you have to say about it?
I actually agree with you on everything that you mentioned. The thing that bothers me the most is the backup camera, which is essentially useless, and it looks like it was a camera from like the early 2000s. I have seen, it's probably honestly the worst backup camera I've ever seen.
It's a pretty bad backup camera for an $80,000
We
vehicle.
bought my dad for his 2006 Toyota Tundra. We bought him a backup camera. How much was that? Like $130?
Yeah.
And it's significantly better than the one that we have in this car.
Absolutely. And it's little things too. Like your dad's Hyundai Sonata that he used to have had rear heated seats. This car doesn't even have rear heated seats.
It's missing some on the technology aspect. For me, I'm pretty low maintenance. I don't need a whole lot, and part of it's because I'm so used to driving a 23-year-old car that I don't really know what cars have nowadays. But you would expect more from an $80,000 car, but that's where we bring into the argument of $29,000 versus $80,000. I think that for a $29,000 car, the technology's pretty good. Like, I'm pretty happy with it, but had we paid $80,000,
I hate it.
I'd be pretty pissed.
Yeah. So the next thing that I really do not like about our Maserati Ghibli, and it really grinds my gears, it's like my biggest pet peeve.
And I know exactly where this is heading.
Yeah, she does. It's when car manufacturers, specifically expensive car manufacturers, use really low-line cheap parts. And this Maserati Ghibli is full of them. Now, for those of you that don't know, Maserati is actually owned by the Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat conglomerate, which means that they can use all these cheaper parts in other vehicles, and you'll see a lot of them in the Maserati. Specifically things like door touch buttons right here. This is the same as a Mercedes Sprinter van or even the Dodge van, so those big giant cargo vans you see, it's the same door controls. It's even this little window switch and little adjusters for the lighting on the inside. This is same as a minivan, the Chrysler Pacifica. And even this little push button start, yes, it is the same as a Dodge Viper, but they have a red one. We got the one that looks like the Dodge Dart, so not the cool pieces in this vehicle. That really ruins this vehicle for me, because when you start touching buttons and it's the same thing as quite literally a $20,000 van, it really puts a damper on the entire outlook of the vehicle. Biggest pet peeve.
When HP and I were in our early 20s, he worked for Dippin' Dots, and as a result, he drove a Dodge van around the entire Dallas-Fort Worth, Oklahoma area, delivering Dippin' Dots for a Dippin' Dots franchisee. And whenever we've gotten older, it's been years since he worked this job, and thus it's been years since he's driven a Dodge van. But for years, every single time I pointed out a Maserati and I'd say, look, a Maserati, look, I like that Maserati. Even way before we even knew we were gonna own one, HP's response would without fail be, you know that has the same parts as my Dodge van, right? And it's just like, who cares? This is one that I disagree with on HP. It's the same, who cares? It looks good. HP's too picky.
Yeah. Now, this isn't a Maserati specific thing, okay? This isn't like Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram only does this. Really big highline supercars like the Lamborghinis will also use things and parts like the Volkswagen Group cars. So like a Passat would have the same interior pieces as a Lamborghini or vice versa. And even my own personal favorite supercar, my dream car, the 2006 Ford GT, uses the same exact turn signals and interior pieces as our 2007 Ford Focus. So it really sucks to see that in these cars, but I don't like it. I hate it. Ugh. Another really big thing that grinds my gears about a really cool looking Italian sports car is they stopped in the back. And I don't mean they physically stopped. I feel like they just didn't do a good job with the back of this vehicle. I think they made this car look so freaking cool in the front. It's sleek, it has cool body lines, and then you get to the back and I feel like they just said, now make it look like every other sedan in the world. And that's exactly what they did. It was really disappointing to see the back of this vehicle. Granted, they did do some pretty cool Maserati logo in the back and it's all finished in chrome, but the taillights, they don't really do anything cool. They're just very ordinary taillights. They put these giant reflectors in the bumper right here. They could have integrated them somewhere on a better body line. They just smacked them right in the center. It's just an ugly looking rear end for a really cool sports car or Italian sedan, right? So my last dislike, one of the big things I do not like about this Maserati Ghibli is its performance. Now this particular trim model is the SQ4. This was the highest trim level for this year model of Maserati Ghibli, and it only makes about 404 horsepower. I think for an $80,000 price tag and you're competing against cars like the Audi S6 or even the BMWs like the 5 Series, this car did not make near as much power. Now it does have a twin turbo V6, which is really cool, but 404 horsepower, you can get that in a Mustang GT for like $34,000. It's just not the fastest Italian sports sedan that you would think you'd be getting for that type of price tag. Just kind of fell short for me there.
Now this is where HP and I just are completely on different wavelengths, and I blame it on the fact that I have, number one, been driving a 1997 4Runner as my main form of transportation since I was 16 basically, and the second thing is I wasn't raised around cars like HP. My family doesn't care about cars, so my entire concept of how fast a car is supposed to drive is like just completely off. Like I have no idea. So this car for me is really quick. I like it. I like the way it looks. Power for me is secondary to looks. I would choose a good looking car over a quick car every single day of the week. So for me, it checks the box quite nicely.
I like this Maserati, and probably the number one thing I like about this Maserati is probably the most foolish thing. It's such a good looking car that everyone recognizes it as being a really nice car despite what they may know about it or what they don't know about it. But this definitely gets a lot of looks for being just a $29,500 car.
Standpoint, you really can't get much better than this. I'm super happy with this car. Yeah, it does have its downfalls. It does have some cheapy aspects of the car, and from like HP's standpoint, his friends, which are all part of the car community, love to crap on this car, but I really like it. I think it's a cool car. It's been doing pretty well on Turo, I think surprisingly well, and so this was a pretty big win for us.
Guys, in the comments below, tell us what you like about this Maserati Ghibli, or maybe what you don't like. Do you agree with me or do you agree with Aubrey? And as always, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and we'll see you on the next episode.